Hello there, welcome to another edition of the Holiday and Cruise Clinic, the only programme on television that's purely dedicated to answering your holiday, cruise and travel related questions. So if you have a question, a query or a dilemma on what to do, where to go, how to do it even, here's how to get in touch. Our website is www.holidayandcruisechannel.co.uk. Go to the clinic page, click on there and send us your questions to our experts through our page on the website. You can also email us directly as well with your questions to clinic@holidayandcruisechannel.co.uk or write to us by post to the Holiday and Cruise Channel, Cavendish House, Brighton Road, Liverpool, L22 5NG. Now, luxury cruising is something we've featured on this programme many times, and when you imagine the 5- and 6-star luxury that you could be experiencing, it's not hard to see why this is a way of cruising that's growing in popularity all the time. Well, here to tell us more about the Crystal style luxury offering is Mike Dupont from Crystal Cruises. Mike, welcome along.
Thank you, good morning.
Now, what in particular do you think sets Crystal Cruises apart from everybody else, from all the other cruise companies, do you think?
Well, Crystal is as you mentioned before, the top end of the luxury arena within the market, the cruise market. Where Crystal is slightly different is our ships are a little bit larger than perhaps the others within that arena. And this appeals to guests who maybe want a little more in terms of enrichment activity during the day and a little more in terms of entertainment in the evening. And it's all about the whole experience, not just the ship, not just the itinerary, not just the destinations, etc. So it's, as I say, it's a slightly different beast.
Okay, so describe a typical day in the life of a Crystal cruiser then.
Okay. If we're at sea, then obviously our guests can avail themselves of the activities during the day. So if they want to get up for an early breakfast, should they wish, then we're serving breakfast from about 6 o'clock in the morning all the way through to a late risers breakfast, which is served at 11. And by the time that's finished, we're moving on to lunch, then afternoon tea and dinner. So, and then during the day, again, as I say, if we're at sea, we have lectures on board. Lecturers on board, and we have enrichment programs. We team up with Berlitz for language courses, we team up with Yamaha for keyboard lessons, there's watercolour painting lessons, there's ballroom dancing lessons, and we even have our own computer university at sea, where our guests can get the most out of their iPhones, their iPods,
software and things like that.
Absolutely, so they can go into the classroom and learn a little bit more about the software that they have.
Oh, brilliant. So as a representative of the company, you are an excellent keyboard player, brilliant linguist, and wonderful on software.
I think I sort of move with the other of our guests who like to lounge around the pool and do absolutely nothing, you know, so there's plenty of choice, but of course those that just want to sit and relax
of course,
can do
because
so, and plenty of space.
The thing to stress, I guess, with the same as many other companies, is it's not compulsory, is it?
Absolutely, and we make no announcements on the ship during the day, forcing people to attend certain activities. They receive a magazine the night before and they can choose what they want to do the following day. And it's all about the space on board. The Serenity, one of the ships we have, is a ship that can take 2,200 passengers, and we only take 1,000. So there's always plenty of space and there's always things to do.
Now, what are you doing for 2012 then? Because it must be difficult in your line of work to be competitive with new things, keeping things fresh, because you're on a ship, you're doing events, you go into places. What else can you do? Well,
we've for 2012 we've introduced all-inclusive on board both of our ships, which has had a major impact at the beginning of this year. So we've included gratuities and alcoholic drinks, and it makes life easier for our guests on board, not having to carry cards around with
I like the idea of that. Keep it simple.
Absolutely, and it's being very, very well received, so that's working well. And bizarrely, actually, because of the arrangement we used to have, our pricing has come down because all-inclusive is actually cheaper for us.
Okay.
Because historically we used to put quite a big on-board credit for our guests to use, so now we've gone all-inclusive.
Do we need to worry about that thing that confuses us Brits at any time of the day or night, tipping?
Not now. Not now that we've gone all-inclusive, because we include all the gratuities, and the crew on board don't expect any more than they're receiving, and they certainly don't ask for it.
Okay, great. So all-inclusive, the kind of food and drink we can enjoy, pretty much the same as a 5-6-star hotel, for example, or
absolutely, and probably a little bit more choice. So we have our main dining room, and we still have a main and a second or a late seating. And actually 80% of our guests prefer that. They like to come back to be with the same waiter at their table who gets to know them. But for those who want open dining, we also have an open dining section as well. and they can dine when they want. But I guess the highlight for us is our two alternative dining restaurants, Prego, which is an Italian restaurant, and Silk Road, which is actually a Nobu restaurant, for those that are familiar with the Nobu restaurants around the world. So.
Go on, explain a bit more for those who don't know, and me.
Okay. Nobu restaurants, Nobu Matsuhisa has his 2 Michelin star restaurants in Mayfair in London, but all around the world. And it's not just Japanese food. I'm not the greatest lover of Japanese cuisine, but in the Nobu restaurant, yes, there is sushi and sashimi. But in the main restaurant, it's the very expensive special steak, Kobe or Wagyu beef, along with lobster spring rolls, and it's really quite stunning. And this is all included within the cruise fare, so it's excellent food as well.
Brilliant. So you can take your pick of what you want to eat, where you want to eat it, and at what time.
Absolutely, and of an evening if you want to go into the main dining room, or if you want to go al fresco in something a little bit more casual on deck.
Now, obviously, if you're going to spend a little bit of time outside, depends where you are cruising. Tell us whereabouts that you go, your itineraries and things like that.
Okay, well, it's worldwide itineraries. We tend to spend the summer in the Mediterranean on one of our ships, and then also in the summer in the Baltics on the other ship. But either side of that, South America, New England in the autumn. We're going to be in Monte Carlo for the Grand Prix next year. We do a round Britain cruise. Asia, Australia, so we kind of follow the sun really, but quite a variety of cruises and itineraries and different lengths, anything from a 7-night to a full world cruise, which could be over 100 nights. So
wow.
Anything in between really.
Yeah, trip of a lifetime.
Absolutely. What
makes you do the things you do then and go the places that you go to? Is it based on what you think people are interested in? Obviously what you can sell as a company, but is there some feedback that people can give you to say, oh, I really wouldn't mind going on a cruise to Barbados? You would then perhaps think about including it, would you?
Oh, absolutely. What Crystal are very good at is listening to what their guests have to say. Prime example of that is the fact that we refurbish our ships every 2 years, and whatever comments we get from our guests, that we will, where we can, obviously administer those changes. But in terms of the destinations, yes, again, we hear from them. We obviously historically look at where we've had successes and where their feedback has been very positive. And for example, for the beginning of 2013, we will be we're touring around South America. Historically, we've done a round the world cruise, but I guess there are places they would like to focus on, and South America being one, and also the Asia Pacific rim, so sort of Los Angeles all the way around back.
And you've had personal experience of all these places, have you? Or
not all of them.
A bit of an insight.
Not all of them, but many of them. So certainly in Asia, the sites and the areas are so different, from modern cities to beautiful island resorts and anything in between, and the culture in Vietnam has been opening up for many years now, and there's a lot more to do there. Very exciting part of the world.
So if I wanted to go on holiday with Crystal Cruises, then I could look forward to going to a culture I didn't know anything about, that perhaps other cruisers may not go in as far as you do.
Yes, I think that's true. And also, when we get to some of these places, we will provide special shore excursions. I was on board the ship last year and we arrived in Kusadasi, but for Crystal guests, and there was an exclusive arrangement to go to Ephesus for a choral concert in the evening at the library at Ephesus. So we try and offer something that's a little bit different. I think what we've discovered in recent years, that old luxury tended to be people who were concerned about the possessions they owned. But the new people now, in the new luxury, if you like, it's the experiences they can have. So we try to give them that experience. And we try to offer shore excursions to places that they might not have thought of visiting, might not be able to visit. You can hire a Ferrari in the south of France or fly in a MiG fighter jet out of Moscow. So it's about the experience, really.
Fantastic. Great. Well, you must have met some interesting people in your travels, and obviously if you are on board the ship, you must meet some interesting people that you're sailing with. Can you tell us a little bit about them and where they come from?
Yes, I think my experiences with Crystal have been that people from all around the world. I previously worked in Asia, and there were a few Japanese people on board, and they've been very interesting. We get some very interesting single folk on board Crystal as well, because our single pricing is very, very competitive, and they're well looked after, and they're all very different. Some they want to sit with each other, others just want to sit on their own. Always have time for a chat or a bit of a story, but we have, for example, a couple of singles, ladies who will cruise with us for about 8 or 9 months of the year.
Wow.
Just really for the company.
Yes.
And the staff on board and the service is second to none, and I think that's why they come back. It's a bit like home from home. Our staff, we have the lowest turnover of crew in the industry. So the service is reliable and it's consistent, and when our guests come back to the ship, they're coming back to the same old faces that they were used to know.
Which is one thing that I think is very important to cruise holiday makers. But let's talk about that in a few moments' time, because I'm interested to know a little bit more about the personal stories of people who you can meet and enjoy your holiday with in a few moments' time, Mike. Okay. So stay right there. We'll be back with Mike in just a couple of minutes, but let me just remind you of our handy cruise guides. Here they are. Maybe we've whetted your appetite a little bit with our talking of going on the high seas and enjoying ourselves generally in 6- and 5-star luxury. Here we go. There's a guide to family cruising and a guide to first-time cruising as well. They can both be yours, one or both, by calling 0871 423 4444. Calls will cost you 10p a minute from a BT landline, and calls from other networks and mobiles may vary if you want one or both. You can also request copies through the website. This is by far one of the better ways of doing it, www.holidayandcruisechannel.co.uk. And while you're doing that, we'll take a quick break. See you back here with Mike and myself in a few minutes' time. Hello there, welcome back to the Holiday and Cruise Clinic. Today we're talking luxury cruising. And remember, if you have a question on cruising or anything else holiday or travel related, our experts are here for you. Here's how to get in touch. You can go to our website, which is www.holidayandcruisechannel.co.uk. Click on the clinic page and send your questions to us and our experts through our page on the website. You can also email us directly to clinic@holidayandcruisechannel.co.uk, or write to us by traditional methods as well. Always great to hear from you. By post to the Holiday and Cruise Channel, Cavendish House, Brighton Road, Liverpool, L22 5NG. So send us a postcard if you're off on your holidays somewhere, and it's great to know where you're going and what you're doing. Mike Dupont from Crystal Cruises is with me now, talking about luxury 5- and 6-star cruising and the types of experiences you can have when you're on one of these lovely ships. Is it more of a family cruise, or is it more of a couples on their own type of cruise, do you think, Mike?
It's probably more of a couples on their own. But what we're finding now, there are more multi-generational families coming on board. The grandparents they've sold their business or retired and want to give their children and their grandchildren a wonderful luxury cruise experience. We do cater for children. We don't have that many on board, I have to say, but we do have staff on board. We actually appoint staff to the children we have. So we have a look to see how many children have booked to be on a specific cruise, and then we appoint the staff accordingly and according to their ages as well. So we've got professional people looking after their needs at whatever ages they are.
That sounds good, and there's plenty for them to get involved in, I guess, even if there is only a few of them on board. It seems to me that families tell me that they enjoy going on a cruise, and the kids might say, don't want to go on a cruise, but when they get there, they never see them.
That's right. They thoroughly enjoy themselves, and I think this is where Crystal really excel, because you really don't see the children. I took my 15-year-old son when we went. And we have a golf professional on board. So whilst that facility is not available to our other guests because it's closed, they will open it up for the children. The Computer University of Sea we have, it's closed in the evening, but the teenagers are allowed in there for an hour on their Facebook free of charge, or
of course,
they're playing table tennis. Absolutely, keep in touch. They're allowed on it as long as they tell everybody what a wonderful time they're having. Otherwise obviously, we have to
everything's moderated.
Absolutely, just keep a little eye on it. But we don't get that many, and I don't want the viewers just to think it's a massive family ship. It certainly isn't. But for those that wish to bring their children, they're well looked after. They'll go to, as I say, our Nobu restaurant, which is a Japanese restaurant. They'll do sushi rolling, or as I say, and then there's we have paddle tennis courts, and they'll play on those. as I say, my son at 11 o'clock in the evening, they all went off to a jacuzzi party whilst everybody else is dining or seeing the shows, you know. So
Great.
it's very well thought out so that guests with children and guests without children are really catered for.
15 years old as well, difficult to please.
Yes, but I just, but he's come back and decided he'd quite like to go again. You know,
Okay.
I think the activities on board and the cuisine, and also one of the big things for him was there's quite a large gym with all the modern equipment in there, and he's a sportsman and a bit of a sports fanatic, so he could at least go running during the day.
You've had an interesting life in travel. I'm beginning to hear about. You enjoy cruising as part of that lifestyle, do you?
Yes, I do. I joined cruising back in the 80s and haven't really looked back. And I just moved through the different cruise lines because, as I'm sure you'll appreciate, there are so many different cruise lines, but there is something for everybody. Whether it's a family cruise, full-on family cruise, whether it's a cruise without children, whether it's an expedition cruise, or whether it's just getting some sunshine. So I worked with Royal Caribbean for many years when they had the smaller ships, and then worked for an Asian cruise line, Star Cruises, for a number of years, which was very interesting again.
So you've seen the growth in cruising generally right from a first-hand experience, haven't you?
Yes, I mean, when I started, I shouldn't perhaps go back that far, but when I started, it was very much the perception that it was purely for elderly, purely. We didn't have the lottery then, so if you'd won the football pools,
Yes, of course.
those who can remember them, so those were the kind of scenarios that people thought you had to belong to actually go on a cruise, and we spent a lot of time and money trying to allay those fears, really, for a lot of people. And I think the cruise industry generally has done a really good job. There are still people who think it's for the elderly and for the rich,
right,
but
absolutely.
I think the cruise industry generally.
You know, judging by the questions that you keep sending us, that people still write to me and say, you know, will I get seasick? You know, do I have to bring any money with me? You know, can I bring my own booze?
Yes.
All that kind of thing. And that's why we produce the guides, really, that I can't try and show you, because they've got all these useful kind of questions and answers in them for things like that.
Yes, and I think generally guests or potential guests should understand there's no such thing as a stupid question. I think sometimes those who haven't cruised before seem to think they're going to be a little embarrassed if they ask a question and somebody's going to say, well, isn't it obvious? There isn't an obvious question, there isn't a stupid question. So, you know, the more questions you get, the better the understanding, and that way it's about putting the right people on the right cruises, and the more you understand about the potential client, then you can actually make sure that they're going to have the perfect cruise for them. Which is very important. So
with your wealth of experience then, give us an idea, maybe a first-time cruiser, what perhaps they should take into consideration to try it, see if they like it.
Well, with the first-time cruiser, it's probably about choosing somewhere that, you know, in the Mediterranean maybe, or if they want to, something out of the UK. The Mediterranean, they should consider flying, because you fly to Barcelona for a couple of hours and then you're in the Mediterranean and then you're sailing. If you prefer not to fly, then obviously you can cruise from the UK, but to get to the warmer climates, it's probably going to take you a couple of days to do that. So it depends how much time and how quickly you want to be in the sunshine. So don't go too far, perhaps initially, unless it's part of a larger holiday. If you're thinking, for example, of going to Australia, and maybe just a few nights on a cruise ship to go to see Tasmania or to see the northwest, the Kimberley region of Australia, to enhance the package. But really, you know, just to understand that it's a relaxed environment. There's plenty to do. There's as much or as little to do as our guests want. The choice is theirs, and really just enjoy it. It's not about eating from morning, noon, and night. You know, you can, but the idea is it's about choice. So, for our guests that maybe they want a light lunch and a large dinner, or don't want breakfast and have you know. So it really is about the choices. So it's just to relax and enjoy them, but. The big thing is really to consider what's included in the cruise fare. The fact you don't have to pack and unpack if you're going to all these different ports of call, that type of thing.
And your luggage allowance is slightly different. And maybe not if you're flying, but if you're going to Southampton or somewhere, or Liverpool maybe for the beginning and end of your cruise, then you can, you know, it's a slightly different way of arriving, isn't it? And
absolutely,
departing.
Absolutely. As I say, there's pros and cons for most ports of embarkation. Southampton, from my experience, only a couple of times have I tried it, but it was a good experience. convenience. You know, as you say, the luggage is taken from you from your car. Next time you see it is in your stateroom. But obviously you're limited to a certain extent as to the destinations you can visit or the sailings you can take.
Now, we touched briefly before the break, Mike, about single travellers and the fact that obviously, yes, you can accommodate them, which is great. I think a lot of people I get to hear from on this programme are getting to the stage where maybe they were cruising regularly with a partner, the partner passed away, they're on their own, they still want to go cruising, but what's can be offered to them, do you think, with the companies? Are they going to pay a premium for wanting to go on their own?
Again, it's an area that the guest would have to look into very closely, because some cruise lines will charge quite a large percentage for single travellers. So much so, I was talking to a guest, funny enough, just at the weekend, who insisted on having the chair at the dining table next to them free because they'd paid for that as well, because they'd paid an awful lot, you know. So I'm having that chair. So nobody said.
Well, it would be nice if they could put somebody in it.
And I think they prefer.
Yes.
I think with Crystal, what we try to do is be as fair as possible. So all of our staterooms are outside, 70% are balcony, and our lead-in stateroom with a large picture window we charge a 25%. Single supplement, and for our lead-in balconies it's a 35% supplement, and it's not until you get up to the Crystal penthouses when we've only got sort of 2 or 4 staterooms that it gets a lot higher. And also the maitre d's on the ships, both of our ships, really look after our guests, look after their needs. In our alternate dining rooms, for example, we will have a singles table. So if those who are on their own and want to join other people, they can do so. If they're on their own and just still want to join other couples, they can do so. Or if they just want to sit there on their own and have dinner on their own, which not many do.
No. But you have the choice, which is nice.
Absolutely, and the maitre d's just look after our guests. They don't feel out of place, they don't feel alone. And as I said, because of the service on board, it's so high that the guests are really very well looked after, whether they're on their own as a couple or with
of course. And any success stories that you know about of people going on holiday single and perhaps meeting somebody who were
we've had a couple, but not the couple I'm thinking of are not romantically attached.
Right.
They've been on cruises where their partners have unfortunately passed away, but they still want to cruise, so they get together and decide which cruise they're going to go on. They have their own staterooms, but they are together during the day and dine together and have the same interests. So it's very compatible.
Yes, sounds brilliant. Okay, well, thanks very much for talking to us about the luxury end of the cruising market. It sounds absolutely fantastic and a little bit more approachable and achievable, perhaps, than we might have thought beforehand. But Mike, thanks very much for putting us in the picture today. And just a quick reminder about our 2 handy guides again. If you are a family looking to go cruising, or if you're a first-time cruiser, here they both are, full of useful questions and answers for you. Just call 0871 423 4444. Calls will cost you 10p a minute from a BT landline, and calls, as usual, from other networks and mobiles may vary. You can also request a copy through our website. By far one of the best ways of doing it, www.holidayandcruisechannel.co.uk. Have a look at what else we're doing while you're on the website and get your free guides as well. Well, that's all from today's edition of the Holiday and Cruise Clinic. My thanks again to Mike Dupont from Crystal Cruises. Most of all, thanks to you for watching, and I'll see you again next time. Goodbye.